to serve the need for the mobility of people? If not, what are the additional facilities that we have to provide? So, and we have to see how can we integrate it with the various transport modes. Is it only mobility by car, or do we have to provide transit service or bus service so that people can move from one place to the other? Do we have to provide railway or light rail or whatever? These are the things that people have to, that we have to study for each of these sectors. So we prioritize these, and the priorities are going to be to promote balanced development in the region. So we want to make sure that the whole region is being developed in a balanced way so that there will be no discrimination against one region or against one ethnic group versus the other. Provide support to services and utilities, and reinforce settlement hierarchy. We have that hierarchy, so the transportation system should also reinforce it so that it will provide mobility. If I want those villages to come to this town next to them so that they will get the treatment of, if they need a surgery at that hospital, I need to provide roads to get into that. Now the roads, we will decide what type of roads we have to do it. So it has to be all in to promote the balanced development and support the services and promote economic activities. These are the existing roads in Edo State for the major roads. Okay, so we went and we digitized all the roads, the major roads that are in the state. We see that we have a dense enough network. There are regions that have that are not dense at all, maybe because they're not heavily inhabited or they are agricultural land. But we have to look at all of these regions and look at that, and then we're going to transportation planning package once we have all these information about the traffic generators and traffic attractors, and try to see how does it work with whether it's suitable or not for our mobility. Okay. I'm going just to do it, show you one for the transportation sector. The other sectors I'll not do it, but once we come up with our regional development plan and we suggest these are the roads that we want to do, we are going to see, look, these are the primary roads that we have. We're going to need to build basically X kilometers of new roads. We are going to need 200 new bridges. Maybe do we need ferry services? Maybe we need railway links. So all these information for the transportation are going to be looked at. And after that, we're going to do some kind of a financial analysis or financial modeling, because when we are proposing solutions, we want to make sure that these solutions are implementable, meaning that we need to look at the financial aspect. If we are providing, we're recommending lots of roads and the state has no money for that, how are we going to do it? So we have to say, what is the cost implication for each of these? So we're translating the master plan into action area plan, meaning that we're looking at the master plan, translating it into what kind of projects we have to develop. We have to look for each project, how much will it cost, and then we will compare it to the actual budget that the state has. So we do the cost estimates for the roads, the bridges, the total cost, and then we say, look, this is the total budget for transportation that the state is currently having. Accordingly, we draw up conclusion, we say, these are the top priority roads. Maybe with the budget that we have, we say, you need to build only 2 roads. Forget about the 100 roads that we recommended for you. Now these 2 roads, we think are top priority. Next time you have money, you go to these 3 other roads. So this is how we do prioritization, so that we can help decision makers to decide what is being done, while taking into consideration the mobility, the need to have a comprehensive system, and basically some political factors that can be involved in decision making. And trust me, political is not just unique to Nigeria, it's worldwide. I worked in the US and I've seen them re-asphalting one road 10 times a year because of the voters in that region. So it's not unique to Nigeria. Political influence it goes hand in hand with planning. So planners have to be practical when they're working on providing solutions. So top priority to be given to roads, dedicate the bulk of Edo State to roads, for instance. Cost network would be, I'm just saying conclusions, but this might not be the same conclusion, but just giving you ideas now ahead of time. And based on that, we will come up with a list of projects that need to be developed. So the other sector that we look at is the water supply. The objective is to provide immediate relief to water supply problems, develop longer terms for sustained water supply. Now, when we're in the city, we have problems, but when we go out of the city, we have major problems with water supply. Water supply out of the cities is a big problem because they're all relying on wells. And this is where the issue of water supply we have to look at. And we have to look for cheap solutions that can help at least solve part of the problem. Identify reliable sources of water for short and long-term, implement schemes for short-term relief and longer-term relief, develop institutional arrangement for sustained operation of water system. We've done our research. We were able to put our hand on a database that shows all the water resources in Edo State, all the water wells that you have. You have we have the boreholes, the hand pumps, the overhead tanks, the taps, and the unimproved wells. These are the location of all the wells that we were able to find in the database that was prepared by the World Bank on Edo State. And out of these, there is 804 that are functional and 559 that are non-functional. So these are the water wells that we were able to identify. You could see that there is so many of these that are non-functionals. Non-functionals are the one in red. Here the color is not, the signs are not projecting properly, but the non-functionals are the one in red. So you could see that in this region, for instance, and in this region, all of this region, they have wells, but none of them is functioning. So here we go. We have to start finding solutions for this area. How can we handle these problems? Okay? One of the cheap and easy solution is rainwater harvesting. It's recommended by World Bank all over the world. And here we are endowed with wealth of rainwater. The rainwater in this region gets close to 1,500 milliliter per year, which is very heavy. At least you can solve the problem of water for 6 months during the year if we just go for these cheap solutions of doing the rainwater harvesting. The rainwater harvesting, there are community rainwater harvesting or individual rainwater harvesting. So at the rooftop, you just collect the rain and then just put it on an underground tank, and then you can use it for 6 months during the rainy season. Or you can do it for a community. You can have the water coming from all these rooftops come into a reservoir, and then you can have a tap and people can come and explore that. This will solve the problem at least for 6 months. It's true this is not the ideal solution, but this is a temporary solution that can give people access to clean water during 6 months of the year instead of having its partial solution, but at least it's a cheap, affordable solution that can be implemented immediately. Okay, but this is something I'm just talking from our experience from other states. This doesn't mean that it's going to be 100% applicable here, but just learning from other experience in other states. These are some of the recommendations that we came up with. Sanitation. The problem of sanitation is also important. Do we have sewer systems? Are villages connected to a sewer system? I doubt it. The public defecation also is a common practice, but this actually has lots of hazard problems. So we have to find solution for sanitation. So we have to eradicate present practice, propose cost-effective and eco-friendly system. The key issue is promoting community awareness, implement schemes adequate to areas, develop institutional arrangements for sustainable operations. One of the solutions that came up, this idea came in India, and then it's being implemented worldwide, which is called the twin pit pour flush toilets. These are cheap toilets that can be put in communities, and it is a very cheap solution, and then it is healthy and approved by the World Bank, and it can be implemented. And it will help a lot in remote communities or in remote villages. Solid waste management. The solid waste, what are we doing with our garbage? Maybe in the city it's being collected, but again, how are we treating the garbage? And outside in the rural areas, how are we disposing of it? So the main objective here is to maintain an organized solid waste disposal facility, improve the living standard of residents, adopt a scientific approach for disposal of waste. The key issues: reduction of indiscriminate dumping, stage approach for implementation of management, develop institutional arrangement for sustainable operations. I don't know, maybe you know that Siraj is also involved with this new map project that is related to erosion control. And we are working with 28 states. So we are the client representative, and consultants will bring all their designs. We review the design for the new map agency before they approve it. And looking at the erosion, one of the causes of erosion is waste disposal. Communities are coming and disposing their waste in the rivers or in the streams, and that thing is actually building up and it's creating erosion, and then that erosion is growing with time, but it all started because of dumping of solid waste in the mainstream. So this could have been avoided had the proper measures been taken for the properly disposing of solid waste. So landfill near large settlements. Where are we going to put landfills? And we always face the problem of NIMBY, not in my neighborhood. What is it, NIMBY? My backyard, not in my backyard. So the NIMBY thing, because communities want to dispose of their waste, but they don't want to put a landfill next to them. Put it next to the next community. So where are we going to put those things? This is something that we have to look for. Where are those sites for making those landfills? How can we make sure that communities are not being affected? And this is where the GIS and the remote sensing technology will come into use while deciding and planning for all these. So we look at the soil type, the geology, the distance from communities, the slope of the land, and accordingly we come up with locations, suitable locations for solid waste. And then it's also the collection of the waste, because even with small communities, if you organize it properly, the waste can be collected with small garbage carts and then can be disposed of in one place, and later on the major disposal or solid waste agency can come and collect it and throw it in other places. So all of these have to be organized, and strategies and policies for doing this have to be done, and people have to be trained, and the institutions have to be created so that people have this education or the understanding of what does it take to treat these things. So as I said, creation of common waste transfer stations for each community, acquisition of trucks for transportation, acquisition of land disposal. And then based on this, we come up with the cost for doing this. And then we decide, well, this is the money that we need to meet these problems. What are we going to do with that money? Where it's going to come from? And how are we going to handle it? And what are the projects that need to be done immediately? What projects have to be done later on? Same for power. So we look at the power, study existing power generation and distribution, select reliable and economical friendly power supply, provide a comprehensive power development plan. The key issues: decrease power shortage, increase power generation. So now maybe the conditions are improving, but there are still in the city of Benin, but outside Benin, I'm sure the shortage is still very strong. So how can we provide more power, and how can we provide a solution to this issue? So we have to look at cost-effective technologies for power generation and achieve power generation target and routing power to the users. Here we can see the major transmissions line that are going from the national grid that go through Benin, and then they are covering part of Edo State. And out of this high transmission lines, I'm sure there is a grid of transmission lines, and we have to include all of these in our modeling so that we see what needs to be done. So here we know that we have natural gas, and natural gas is available, so we could exploit it to make those combined cycle power generation. And then this can be used to generate for the state and maybe sell to other states. So we have the advantage in Edo that we have natural gas that we could use for power generation. And we have to look at rehabilitation of existing powers and the transmission and distribution networks. So we look at the short term versus the long term. Maybe part of the solutions can be off-grid power generation. You have communities that are remote, but you don't have to wait for the transmission line to come and then to have the power station or the power stations so that we're able to distribute. We can have off-grid proposals, and off-grid can be solar power grid. So each community can be studied alone, and accordingly we can come up with solutions. How can we provide the power to all these communities without really going for the grand schemas that require lots of budget and make the people await for years before they get their power. Housing. Study existing housing situation. Good. Yes. And then we do it? Okay. So we're looking at housing. So same as here. We look at the shortage in housing. Where do we need to put housing? Where do we need to add housing? Health. We look at health. The location of all the health. We were able to locate all the health facilities that we have, and we divided them by private, public. And then here, according to this population, this central theory, we decided that 300,000 will get a general hospital. We have for each general hospital there should be 5, for each specialized hospital there should be 5 general hospitals, and then for each of these general hospitals should have 3 primary, and then for each primary health should have clinics. Education, again, we went for the education, tried to find where are the primary and secondary schools. This is the location of all the schools in Edo. And then we'll try to find if they match the international requirements or the norms. For each 2,500 people, you need to have primary school. 5,000 people, you need secondary school. 67,000, you need general college. 300,000, you need professional college. And for every 100,000 population, you need skill acquisition centers. So this is how it works with the hierarchy thing. The industry, again, identify the small-scale industries. These are things that can keep people in their villages. We don't want people to keep immigrating to the cities. They have to stay in their villages so that they can grow their land, or they can work in small industries that can give them their, ensure for them their decent living. So we have to make it for all the communities. These are the type of small industries that we're talking about. And then agriculture, we have to look at agriculture, the role that the state has to play in terms of agriculture. This is very important again. We have to see what are the lands that have to be kept as agricultural land, which ones have to be changed from natural, I mean, everybody is moving into the palm tree industry. Palm trees they have good revenues, but environmentally they're not really very acceptable. So there are issues here that we have to deal with. What are the general recommendations that we have to give? Okay. And then we talk about fisheries. Where should we have fisheries? The type of fisheries, how to grow it, what kind of revenues the people can have, the government can contribute to this. And then at the end, so for each of these sectors, we have a cost estimate for the comprehensive regional development, let's say, and then we have the average approved state budget, and then we can say what is the percentage of the money that is available for it, and then accordingly we could see what is the resulting available budget for each sector, and we look for the coming 10 years, how much can we pay, and accordingly we try to find in each sector how many of these projects we can finance, for instance, for 10 years. And this is how the master plan that we're talking about will be translated into action area plans. So based on the budget and based on the cost to develop it. And this is why we said we need to have financial analysts with us, because every project has to be costed and has to be evaluated. And I'm going to stop here for questions and for the analysis.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mahmoud. If we have any questions, comments, let's spend about 5 minutes later.
Edo State Development Plan. I've seen that we have listed certain items we should be looking out for, such as transportation, water, sanitation, etc. But I want to believe that there is one vital issue that's not stated here, which is obvious to everybody. And I do believe that one of the fallouts of development is the issue of security challenge. I can see that it's not taken off there here. Thank you.
Very much for your presentation. My question cuts across the previous slides. That's on the Edo Development Plan and in the regional plan. Specifically that of the development plan, you highlighted the phases. That's the initiation, the analysis, setting of the objective. And then, still looking at the regional plan, I wouldn't know where you want to place a SWOT analysis. And the SWOT analysis will bring out, if there were old plans, what are the strengths? How do we look at those the viable and the vital things in those plans that we're likely going to retain, and then maybe dispose of those that are weak?
Sir, you've taken the two slides now. Yes, you said we have 20,000 square kilometers to cover. But however, before now there were two development plans. And from your records, you said there's 252 square kilometers already built up or adjusted. But in your methodology, you never made reference to what's the current situation, what adjustments need to be done to the current situations. Those are not in your methodology. Thank you.
She mentioned about security. You're absolutely right. And I mentioned it when we said that we look at the conditions, the socioeconomic conditions, and I said another important factor is security. Security is very important, especially when you're talking about development. So we will try. Security, usually it is not 100% part of a master plan. When you are living in a country, you're supposed to have a government that is providing you with your basic needs, which are security and economic stability or whatever you want. So the master plan assumes that you're living in a secure environment. However, when we're doing the master plan, we take into consideration security factors, but we don't plan to improve security ourselves because we're not an enforcing agencies. We cannot come and employ 10,000 policemen and deploy them in the country. It's not the job of a planner, okay? But the job of a planner is to reduce these factors, those hazard factors, by improving the employment opportunities, by improving the living conditions of people. And with time, these are interconnected with security. When you have security issues, they are always related to socioeconomic problems. So if you deal with the socioeconomic problems, security is going to improve. But now the question of the chicken and egg, what do you start with? If you don't have security, maybe you're not able to provide the economic things to work. And if you start with to improve the socioeconomic conditions so that the security stabilizes, this might be a very long procedure. So the planners have to provide the good environment so that businesses will thrive, people living conditions would get better. However, hoping that security will reduce in time, but this has to be coupled with some actions taken by the government to deal with security. Okay. Second question was the SWOT analysis. I agree with you. I mean, I skipped it in my slides because I have many slides. I had one slide on SWOT analysis. We look at SWOT analysis and we look what is the strengths, the weaknesses of different plans that have been done before. I mean, I agree 100% with you. When you are working You don't come and they say, I'm going to throw away everything else that's been done. So you take it, you analyze it, and then you do the SWOT analysis to check, to learn from the past, and then to actually try to see how you can improve on it. You try to see what are the weaknesses, what are the strengths, what are the opportunities that you have, and then based on that, you decide what is the next action that you take. So the SWOT analysis comes for each of these sectors, we do it. So I really commend you for your comment. You hit the nail on the head. This is part of the analysis that planners do when they are actually working and developing plans. Thank you for your question. Unfortunately, the masks and the triple mask that you were wearing, I couldn't hear your question properly. So, so what is it quickly?
Well, look, you said you've already done a base, you have done a base survey in your two presentations.
Yes.
You said your methodology, you didn't talk about.
When we start with the survey, we start with the base condition. So when you start at the base condition, you want to know, for instance, where do you have traffic congestions in the city? This is what you know. I mean, you know that these roads that you have right now, for instance, if you're talking about the urban level, at the urban master plan, these roads are heavily congested. So what do? Do I keep them as they are, or I have to provide a parallel, for instance, corridor that can provide mobility between point A to point B? If this is heavily congested, if you provide a parallel corridor to it, if you cannot increase the capacity of that road by adding more lanes or having a double-decker road or whatever recommendation you have, you might have to look at other alternatives so that you can deal with this. So you take the current condition, and based on the current condition, you see how can you address them, and you look for the future also. How can I meet the demand in the future for to stay with the same example, for travel, for transportation. And this is how you use the current condition to start by looking at the areas, the problem, and then try to address these areas, and then forecast for the future, how can you avoid such problems, okay? So this is how you use the current conditions. Current conditions will show you where you have high densities, will show you where you have poverties. They will show you where you have low education, where you have unemployment. And based on these, you will try to see maybe if I have an area of very high unemployment, maybe finding a small land in there and making it industrial land so that I can have some industries come and then hire people and work in that area. So you will be able to take people off the streets, reduce the crime rate, put them in a working environment, and make improve their economic conditions. So the base condition is very important for us to know what are the problems, where they are located, how can we address them now, and how can we plan for the future so that such problems will not occur again. Okay, I hope I answered you.
Thank you very much. We have one more presentation on the 2050 Economic Development Master Plan, Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning for this presentation.
Your Excellency, the Deputy Governor, the Secretary to the State Government, the Head of Service, permit me to adopt the existing protocol. My name is F.A. Iseria. I function as the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning. And I am here with my colleague, Mrs. Ebuwa Ode, the Head of Central Planning Department. Together, we want to briefly tell you what we have been doing in the long-term development plan called Edo in 2050, our strategic plan. Edo in 2050 is a project initiated by the ministry in partnership with Foundation for Partnership in Niger Delta, PIND. PIND have engaged a project manager to give us technical support to do this project. The technical partner they gave to us, Dr. Francis Utamo, is supposed to be here today to do a presentation. In fact, we have been planning to do a similar workshop to stakeholders like this, But from the emerging realities, we are going to put our own into whatever we are doing here. Having realized the fact that our output is going to be input into this master plan. Let's see, sorry. Okay, sorry. Okay. Though I joined this project very late, but have been brought up to speed. Dr. Otamo, as I said before, is the project manager. Mrs. Ebuwa here is the shadow project manager. Yes, that is how she's referred to. And we are lucky from the keynote address of His Excellency. He has said that we are to take ownership of the project, not just this one. Mrs. Sebu will have been working closely with Dr. Utamo, and I know she will be able to speak to some of the things that we have done so far. And from the presentation of Siraj, I know we are virtually doing the same thing in that area of the economic development. But the only difference is that while he was talking about 13 sectors, we are talking about 24 sectors. And we are ready to pull out our own sectors into the 13, except we are able to justify why our 24 will remain, and the 13 will be expanded into the 24. That is where we are going. So far, we have done a session report, which we are ready to present a subsequent workshop. We did literature review, doing peer analysis, some with states in Nigeria like Cross River and Lagos State, some in cities outside Nigeria like Johannesburg, some with other countries that we can conveniently benchmark with Edo State in terms of population and in terms of land mass. Then we have done a diagnostic report of the 24 sectors. Then we are currently putting together the draft plan as submitted by the subject experts. In fact, in each of the sectors, we have one subject expert, and each of them, they are ready to come to this place in the subsequent workshop to address issues that may arise from the reports that they have submitted. Some of these experts are in the academia, some are in the Edo State Public Service, some are in the private service, both in Nigeria and in diaspora. We'll be organizing Zoom meetings and rest of them with them. At this stage, I want to call Mrs. Ode to speak to the other issues. We just have small slides, about 9 in number. We don't want to bore you with too many things until we get into the detailed subsequent workshop. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I stand on the already established protocol and I appreciate this opportunity given to me. Thank you. Okay. Like my boss has already said, we've achieved so many footprints like we've displayed. The Sectoral report covered the design, the engagement. The whole thing started with a competition, and we had an award, a technical support, like my boss has said. It led us to the literature review, the diagnostic report. And the diagnostic report covers the SWOT analysis of the subsectors. It covers all that we have on ground, which is a very rich document that will serve as a baseline data report for the state. It led us to the sector goals, visioning, engagement, and we also have a monitoring and evaluation framework, both especially in the plan, which will also guide us to monitor the plan in future. And again, among the 24 sectors, like my boss said, we have sector experts, and they worked with the planning team. The planning team are all internal stakeholders, like our presenter said before. That's from MDAs. They have their cluster groups where they work together and the experts ensure capacity building in the sector. Then again, it led us to we've not done the diagnostic validation. If you see, it's not the same color like others that we've achieved, because it's going to be a validation process where we'll involve all MDAs and especially the non-state actors. Then the other aspect is the quality assurance. We intend to also do a quality assurance on the diagnostic report. Why we have this major deliverable, the diagnostic report and the plan itself, is because we have this very challenge of data collection. We notice across MDAs that there's poor record keeping and storage system. You could have information on maybe a previous year, and even the current year will not even be complete. So we struggle through data gathering, secondary and primary data. Let me go to the next slide. This is the 24 experts. These are the 24 experts that we engaged for the 24 sectors. Like my boss said, some are in the diaspora, some are within the state, and some are even outside the state. But we have over 70% from Edo State, which is a plus to us. Then the 24 sectors, we have healthcare, agric, water and sanitation, business climate, competitiveness, fiscal environment, investment promotion, economic sector, environment and climate change, forestry, oil and gas, solid minerals. We have GIS and land administration. We have transport and housing. We have waste management. Then we have the flagship, which is the most recent. It covers majorly the new projects in the state. Then we have governance and institution strengthening. Like our first presenter said, yes, security is not supposed to be exposed, yes, but we covered a little of the security, including fire service, law and order. And we have the manufacturing sector, ICT, monitor and evaluation, education, tourism, arts and culture, power, social welfare, governance, and waste. Okay, I've mentioned waste management. Then the critical aspects of the plan, yes, I'll speak from this diagram. We all know about the 6 thematic pillars. The smaller house is showing the framework that is already existing in the states. We have our vision statement, our mission statement in the first triangle. It led us to the 3 key result areas of the state, which, they're housing the 6 thematic pillars. Then, in the new plan, we have this proposed state, the 4 key pillars that we now use to cover the existing structure. So we have governance and sustainable development, social development, economic development, then infrastructure development. I will speak only on the infrastructure development because I noticed the new plans that we're about to develop is majorly on infrastructure. From the infrastructure, we covered ICT, flagship, we covered water and sanitation, we covered power, we covered transport, energy, that's power, then we covered flagship, which is the most important. So we have about 6 sub-sectors under the infrastructure development. Then we have this outstanding field, which is going to be a separate chapter on its own, because even if we put everything in a document or we put it in graphics, if we cannot tell how we're going to fund the plan, it will be as if we've not worked at all. So we intend to have an indicative funding, hybrid, so we're currently working on that. And we intend to have it so robust, so we'll have a basket for the market. And we know if we are going to borrow, we just know what we have on ground, feasibility studies, and other financial arrangements. Thank you very much.
Do we have any questions for the plan section at this stage? Any questions, comments, suggestions? Yes, please.
The 2050 economic plan 2030. 30-year plan. So are both going to be at some point merged, or they are going to work simultaneously?
Set of the master plan. Ours is going to be merged into the bigger picture. Thank you.
Coming from our own staff, I needed to ask the question because you are the one that will manage this and make it work. How do you intend to change the mentality of our staff to make sure that the issues that were raised over enforcement are dealt with?
Working with Greenpeace, we have done as in, and we have done to be. We are currently doing staff placement. All this series of workshops we've had in this hall with Greenfield, it is talking about the orientation of staff, how to change the mentality. It is not going to be a one-day thing, but I know we are already heading for the right direction. Thank you.
I'd like to invite Daniel to speak to the issue of roles and responsibilities of MBAs and other key stakeholders. Following that presentation, we should then have an open line.
So my mandate here was to be provocative to my colleagues in the MDAs, right? And I'll just start with a quote from the MD of Siraj. He said, "Siraj is not doing the master plan for you. We are here to do the master plan with you." And the intelligence and the capacity is really on the front lines. And I believe that what Siraj is coming to do is to provide the necessary support, and then we do the work. The heavy lifting will be done by you and I. Are we together? So our job here is this will just take us through some of the thinking, and then also to see how we are supposed to support the entire process and deliver results for the state. Okay, so first thing I want to say is citizens do not engage with government. Citizens engage with civil servants, right? At the point of engagement, it's with civil servants. Secondly, when citizens engage with MDAs, they are really engaging with civil servants. And I'm showing that the human interaction and the people that the citizens meet are the most important part of the entire process that we are doing. Plans should be all about citizen and outcome and citizen experience. And we are at the interface of that. And I'm sure that is what the consultants expect from those of us who are within the service. And if you see this slide just shows that in summary, there are basically three major areas. And across those areas, you are seeing that there are citizen interface. Economic, we're dealing with farmers, we're dealing with producers, taxpayers, market women, business owners, investors, professionals, and job seekers. On the plan side, you're dealing again with contractors, you're dealing with road users, you're dealing with builders, utility providers. On the social side, you're dealing with the elderly, the disabled. And if you just leave it through, you see that these are the people we are really thinking about when we are talking about all these grand things with regards to the plan. But the interface between the plan and the people are the MDAs. And those representing the MDAs are the civil servants. Here captures some of the initial thoughts on what we will be doing. At the top line, again, this is illustrative. At the top line, we'll see that there's a vision, okay, make Edo State the #1 investment destination in Africa, right? Second, in all the things that we are doing from the plan is to make Edo State more competitive, improve the well-being and prosperity of Edo citizens through the development and delivery of social, physical, and economic infrastructure. And if you want to look at indicators or outcomes, that Edo should become the highest, to have the highest human capital index, right? Highest internally generated revenue, lowest unemployment rate, highest growth rate of infrastructure stock. And then our stakeholders here, business and households, investors, financial institutions, development partners, and then federal government and other kinds of governments. But now see where the MDA is now coming. There is need for us to show leadership at every level. Leadership in the departments, units, and the agencies. And what are we speaking of when we talk about leadership here is that there must be quick decision making, and as you interface between the consultants and getting your people ready and to take action, you must be willing to make the necessary decisions at that point and take initiative. Second is ensuring that you delegate, because the implementation is really on the lower side. The days of silos are over, right? Where senior people within the ministry hoard information, and those who work for you do not have the necessary information to work. So we expect you to communicate this information and delegate and allow your people to work, so that as we carry on the work, right, it will be smooth, right? If your people are doing well, you are doing well. Okay, it doesn't really matter who takes the glory or who takes the shine. Let them do well. Let them interface, because at some point they will be interfacing with other people other than yourself. So again, delegation, reporting processes. Ensure that you are reporting as things are happening, and then ensure that there's communication. So on the part of leadership, that's captured. There must be strong coordination. Strong coordination. Again, ensuring that plans coordination. Many of the documents that were being presented here were from external parties. These things at some point passed through somebody within the system and was lost, right? So we should be able to find a way to gather all this information and this collateral between the work that happened in the first administration and the work that Greenfields had been doing. We have built serious collateral within the service, and now it resides within our various departments and agencies. So let's put those things together, because they are useful for the quality of work that we'll be doing. Budget coordination, ensure that there's alignment of budget, and then coordination of all kinds of partners. Next, we'll look at communication. Again, communication processes, how the messages are being and all that. Let me just run through some other things. I mentioned I talked about data and all that. So let's get this one again. The truth is, we are fortunate in Edo State to have the kind of leadership that we currently have. And the program happening here is not happening anywhere else in the country. When I speak to my colleagues in other states, and all that, they are all saying that they wish they were in Edo State. We have an opportunity, and we must not allow this opportunity to go to waste. Okay? In order for this thing to be entrenched, it is beyond the administration of our current governor. If you look, we're talking about 30 years, right? We are talking about 4 successive administrations of 2 complete terms for these things to be entrenched. And we're talking about 32 years. In all this, the only constant is the bureaucracy. Are we together? So that shows the importance of your role in making this thing happen. So ultimately, in summary, what do we need and what do we require from the MDAs? There is need for you to take ownership of the entire process. It is not a them versus us. It's not them and us. It is not Siraj's document. It's not, Greenfield. It's ours. So until you go from theirs to it's mine, it's ours, it's we, then we've started making progress. Next is to ensure that as communication is as documents are moving around, that they are being archived and made available and communicated. So there's need to retain institutional memory as the activities are progressing. And the only way we build capacity, like the MD said, is by doing. So we have to do. Okay? So just the same way, there are no experts anywhere. Just jump in, get involved. When they come into your department, go the extra mile. You don't have the information, go seek for the information. If you need to do research, go ahead and do the research. So the bottom line, every MDA and representative within that MDA, however senior or junior, we need you to get involved in the course of doing the work, right? You build capacity. Your Excellency, to respond to your question on how we intend to change the mindset and mentality of the staff, it's already happening, sir. The civil servants went to the same school as the consultants and those who are working as analysts. The truth is, the conditions had not been as favorable. I had an interesting experience. All my non-civil service staff were pulled out from me, so the rug was pulled from under my feet, and I was told I had to work only with civil servants. I'm happy to say today that the civil servants that we are working with, and I'm talking about those who are within the Transformation Office core and the Army of Change Champions we're identifying in all the MDAs, they are showing similar level of skill as the consultants. Some of the reports... I have a civil servant working on my team who has 50 certifications and is a 6 Sigma black belt. And they play with Excel, they do everything. And what is the process? The same thing that you do in consulting and outfits. You throw them in the deep end. Sail or sink. But anyhow, give me the answer. And they are producing. And so we'll just keep on that process. As we keep on turning the wheel and pushing the people and all that, we'll see the kind of results that we've not seen in the history of Edo State or Nigeria. In summary, sir, the world has changed. When the previous plans were done, the stock keeping capacity of our economy was very low. Now we have entered a very complex and complicated world. And so we are organizing ourselves right now to build the Edo State of the future. And you, my friends, in the MDAs, are the ones who are going to make it happen. Thank you very much.
Very much. So at this stage,
of Edo State, the head of service, are distinguished consultants, ladies and gentlemen, you will agree with me that we have entered the second gear in our transformation process. Just listening to all the presentations this morning, I'm sure that you have picked up some key and valuable insights into what this is all about. It's about, like I said, all of us understanding the direction. Where are we going as a people? Where are we going as a state? What is our role individually, collectively, institutionally, in this journey to where we are going? How do we measure progress? I'm glad, just listening to the roundup presentation by the Transformation Office, that we are making progress. We are making progress. And you must all acknowledge that. Enhanced. You see, that is what we want to stop. We want to purchase acknowledgement. I'm not going to keep you much longer. I think most of what have been said this morning have been said very, very clearly. It's a process we are commencing, a very deliberate and diligent process in which everyone must be involved. In Mr. Akonobi's presentation, when he said that it's 4 + 4, 8, and 8 and 8, so 32 years. That's the career of the civil servant. Right? 4 administrations of 8 years each. So it is a mistake for the political class we represent to believe that we can make the kind of progress we promise our people without engaging the civil service. That's why we have taken this time out, this last 6 months, to try and understand the issues with the civil service, to try and see how we can work with the civil service, how we can strengthen the civil service, so that when politicians come on board to join us, we can witness a rapid progress. Of course, there are going to be issues. There are people who have been here for the last 32 years, who have done things in a certain way, who may not be able to cope. But that is life. They may have to leave on their own. That is the honorable thing to do. Otherwise, they may not be able to blend. Because if you've done something for so long in a certain way, and you are being forced to change within a short period of time, it may not be healthy for you. From what you have heard, we have no choice. We have no option. And we have no time. What I said was that, look, since the end of the Civil War, because before the Civil War, Nigeria operated on a certain paradigm. We had no crude oil. The regions relied on the resources they had. And government ran based on taxation, which it earned from the regions and production, particularly agricultural production in the regions. But in the last 40 or so years, crude oil came and replaced those economic activities and earnings. So we've run a federation relying almost exclusively on crude oil, fossil fuel. With the advent of COVID last year, there was a wake-up call, a shock to the world, which you know all the crisis, but politically triggered off a change in the government in America. And since President Biden came into power, the Americans, the US government, in such a short time, trying to look for alternatives. And where we are in the world today, from what I see and I know, is that we will be fortunate. Because nobody is investing in fossil fuel, in crude oil. Nobody. They're looking at alternatives. The Japanese are now getting energy from water. They're extracting hydrogen from oxygen to generate energy. This is where we are in the world today. So for a country that is still hoping on crude oil, it's only a question of time. And pretending and doing all sorts of, interesting financial gymnastics to keep it going. It's only a question of time. And it's not a long time. But what we have going for us in Edo is, as a region, when there were 3 other regions in this country, we are the only ones in the history of Nigeria who said we want to be on our own. Broke out of the Western region, and we have been on our own since. We know how to survive. When we left the Western region in 1963 to Midwest, we came with nothing. What we came with were the core civil servants from the West, the trained civil servants. They were the ones who came here and we built this region and this state. With the kind of transformation and change we're seeing, as long as we can engage you, the civil servants, and build a new crop of you, we will prevail. But we must do what we have started doing now. This is our survival. We must sit down, we must plan. And this planning has to involve everybody. Yes, the budget team has done a great job. The shadow did a fantastic job. However, that is not the kind of planning we want. Where I, the governor, come in and I'm only hearing and seeing what has been happening. That means I was not even involved in the process. So if I wasn't involved, how many of the 3,000 or more public and civil servants were involved? This one, everybody must be involved. The key difference, every involved. Joanna we will have to teach her children in the primary schools about this plan. Because when I was growing up, they took us on an excursion to Rokota Hall to Shlan, which they had for. That's when it was in my mind. President then, but saw it. Drainage in the center of the city. It's got to be ingrained in the minds and hearts of everybody. That's going to be our citizen document. It has to be a very rigorous and deliberate process. And it's going to tie back into the transformation exercise which has been commenced. It's going to tie back into your KPIs. It's going to tie back into your scorecards. The difference today is that with technology, everything is possible. Technology brings in a certain level of transparency. So people can't hide. You just have to do the work. Lastly, note, it is not about us. Daniel's presentation talked about one thing, the citizens. It's not about government. When they say government, what they really mean is us. So it's about how we engage with the citizens. Over time, because of the structure of our economy, and that's what you hear from Abuja today, the people in government think they are better, they know more than the citizens. Who are you to know? When you say something they disagree with because they feel we're in power, so we know more than you. We the people, we the officials of government, we civil servants, because we are government, we think that we are better than and know more than the people. But it's a fallacy. It's a fallacy because it is these people, it is the taxes they pay from their own economic activities that will sustain us going into the future. It is their sweat that will pay our salaries. So it cannot be foolish for them to be producing the resources that keep us. Therefore, our emphasis must be on them. We have to keep them alive. The smart, farmer ensures that you feed the chicken so that it can produce a lot of eggs. That's why government needs to create the enabling environment for the citizens to thrive, to do well, so that from their wealth, government can be sustained. This used to be what it was. Sometime in the history of this country, people in government began to feel threatened by people who create wealth because they say, oh, they will sponsor coups and all that. And so there was an unwitting ethos, or witting decision, as it were, to undermine people who produce. So what you have now is a situation where it's like, okay, who are you? You ordinary or a bloody civilian, right? Do you know who I am? I'm government. And it's been like there's been this competition between the governed and the people. But as democracy evolves, that competition is being smoothened out. So going forward, the next steps. We're going to have monthly workshops in which I will be present. And from what they have told us, we're going to have between 12 and 18 of those workshops, because this exercise must be complete in 18 months. So that all of us understand what the scores are, what's on the table, where we are going, and how we will get there. And we're going to develop our plans and own the plans with the citizens of our state. And I can assure you, from what I heard this morning, from what I've seen, the sky is our limit. The sky is our limit. Because all the ideas, all the resources that have been paraded, if we're able to capture all of them into a streamlined plan and pursue them diligently, nobody will touch us. Thank you very much, and have a great weekend.
in front, Carry your madam, be in front. Yes. See.
Record me.